Sunderland and the River Wear, we see the university, Glass Centre and beyond the marina surrounded by public art, underlining the move from heavy industry to leisure. A changing vista with what seems a common denominator of heavy industry commemorated by public art, reflecting our past, the pits, iron, steel and shipyards which dominated our landscape for hundreds of years. The river has a number of public artworks, including the conversation piece on the South Foreshore at South Shields, installed in 1999, the same year as Tyne and New on the north side of the river. Flash on the banks of the Tyne at Hebburn was launched 10 years later and is seen as a perfect reminder of what Hebburn represented, a major shipbuilding town.
And in 2002 I was invited to put a proposal in for a piece of artwork for Hebburn Riverside Park. And after talking to people in the area and doing some research about the history, I discovered there were lots of industries in Hebburn. Some of them weren't so evident anymore. Shipbuilding, coal mining, coke works, electrical engineering. And one thing that perhaps would link all those things together was flashes of light, the industrial flashes of light from the arc welding or from the coke works. I worked with many different communities to design flashes of light, and these were orchestrated through a number of columns which have LEDs, lights on the top, very bright LEDs, but it was all solar powered, so it was really was looking to the future. And there was no cabling linking any of the columns, it was all radio controlled. So there was a radio receiver that tells all the columns when to come on and off. And these come on at night, and there's a timetable of when they come on, so it's always in the dark, but also they're 30-second flashes of light during the day every 15 minutes. So it was a piece that would work during the day and at night.
Sutter Point Lighthouse is something we won't forget, but Marsden Village, within a stone's throw of the lighthouse, has almost been forgotten. Marsden was a mining village established in 1874 and had around 700 living there at one point. The mine closed in 1968 and the village disappeared.
Well, I worked at Whitburn Colliery from 1957 till about when the colliery closed, about 68. Whitburn was a wet pit, most of it was wet, and I was working in the East Yard seam, which was 3 miles out under the sea, under the North Sea then, and it took us 3/4 of an hour to get in, 3/4 of an hour to get out by. And I think it's because the such an adverse industry, danger and whatever else, this sense of humour developed. When the colliery closed, it was the push I needed to get out. When I first went into the artistic side of my life, the stuff I did was very dour. It was mostly pen and ink work as well. And then I moved away from coal mine for about 15 years. And suddenly I got this urge to go back to the subject. And this is the type of thing I was doing.
Bob Olley's art captures life underground, remembering his world, not only for himself, but for future generations. We seem to have recalled all of our rich industrial past, but what of the trains which crisscrossed our towns? Coal trucks ran along here, from Westoe, through Crossgate, and onto the coal depot at St Hilda's. Gone are the railway lines, replaced by walk and cycle paths. Poets like Auden and Larkin have written of trains and train journeys, but there's little reference to trains in our area and the dominance of the railways. One man, however, will never forget.
Well, I was 40 years on the railway, but only spent 6 years in South Shields. Worked at Sunderland, Tyne Yard, Power Box, and up to Concert, Darlington, Durham. But Shields it sticks in my memory because I used to live in Shields. And mostly South Shields Station, High Shields Station, and Harton Junction, where I used to work. You'd had a Harton railway system. You had Hilda Yard. You could see the trains coming from Hilda Yards through the tunnel under where the La Strada was and up to Hartlepool Steels. And then they used to run the wagons back. And on the British rail system, you had a whole huge system at Green Lane, a massive system at Tyne-Dock Bottom, where they used to get these big 9F engines hauling these ore trains all the way to Consett. And they were hauling through Green Lane at high speed, and the firemen must have been really fit to haul up. You should run all the way to Consett, up a bank, big 9Fs. It was just a massive system. Well, if you were on the Marsden Rattler, you used to travel from Westall, and it was a huge station, had a little signal box there and all. The Harton Rail was a very impressive system, and then you could go to Westall and right through to Woodburn and travel back. It was only a short distance on an ancient rolling stock. And after that, they pulled it all down, done away with the system altogether, and there's photographs now of how it was, and I took one in '95 of the station. And after that, they built these flats on it, and you wouldn't think there'd been anything there. It's a shame.
The demise of heavy industry has had a dramatic impact on the river. By the mid-1980s, there was virtually no shipbuilding on the Tyne.
I started working in the shipyards when I left school, 1975. My granddad had been a welder, and his son, my uncle, my mum's brother, also my uncle Tom. So it was a natural thing for me to kind of aspire to be the same as them. You know, they were my kind of role models. They were the people I grew up with, and the fact that they were welders, you know, it was a no-brainer for me really. I wanted to be like them. I mean, a lot of the guys used to pride themselves on the fact that they never ever lost any time at all. And I just have visions coming back of, for example, if we were transferred to the Wallsend Big Yard, and you know, if you were there was a roller shutter which used to come down dead on 7:30 on a morning, and so if you were at the top of the bank and the shutter started coming down, you know, myself, my mates would probably just saunter down, happy to lose quarter of an hour's pay, but you'd see some guys run down, and they'd be throwing the haversacks under the shutter just before it hit the ground, and doing a commando roll into the yard just to save quarter of an hour's pay. And I mean, looking at the river now, compared to even sort of 20 years ago, it's absolutely incredible. You know, I mean, clearly the sort of the shipyards, to all intents and purposes, have gone. You know, that high volume of employment is gone for people. But I think what's happening is we're trying to make an alternative use for the river now. And whereas at one time it was about industry and about work and about employment, it now seems to be more about sort of improving the housing and getting people actually living nearer the river again.
When shipbuilding dominated the Tyne, people lived as close as possible to their work on the river, often in poor quality homes. This is the site of Brigham and Cowan Shipyard. Now people have moved back into better housing. These photographs reflect the regeneration of the area. Shipyard vanishes before our eyes. And there's more regeneration at Harton Quays Park, beside the Customs House and the BT building. Looking to the mouth of the Tyne and those great pinchers, the north and south piers, that seem to be holding in the river, which is forever and forever changing.